would you rather have the Bears front office or the Tigers front office?
Oh God, I'd choose death.
It's Baseball at the Corner. This is the Michigan in Trouble podcast with your hosts, Alex S. Freeman and Luke Jaconis. Hello and welcome to the Michigan and Trumbull podcast. I'm Alex Freeman, joined as always by Luke Jaconis. Luke, a rough first Sunday of NFL season for Lions fans and Bears fans, as you are a Bears fan. For those that are new to the podcast in NFL season times, Luke is a Bears fan, being from the Chicago area. That is his natural team.
My team. Yeah, that's the one Chicago team I always go all out for. But it's becoming incredibly clear that they do not go all out for me. So I think I'm going to take my talents to South Beach, which is about an hour and 40 minutes away from where I live, and become a Dolphins fan. Goodbye.
They've never had any trouble, the Dolphins.
Ever.
It's a fine franchise with
never
just a
trouble.
long. I can't make fun of the Dolphins winning history because I'm a Lions fan. So
yeah. And I can't even really make fun of the Lions. I mean, it's easy as 85. Okay, great. 85 we're coming up on 40 years ago, folks. Get over it. Get over it, everyone. And I specifically say that to people in the Bears organization, particularly upper management. 85 was almost 40 years ago. Get over it. The game has changed since 1985. Get your head out of your ass and figure it out somehow, please, for the love of God. Because the Bears have no defense. It is a group of overrated, overpaid imbeciles, especially when it comes to the cornerback position. They can't stop the passing game if their life depended on it. I do like Roquan Smith. I'll give him some love. I think he is awesome. Khalil Mack, people have caught up to him. Robert Quinn, useless. Akeem Hicks, maybe good for one sack a game, yet he'll brag and boast like he's made 9. They're just a mess. A hot mess on defense. Matt Nagy's clueless. Justin Fields is pretty cool, though, and so is David Montgomery. But yeah, that's what's going on in Bears land right now. It's not great. And as we said before the show, I know all the teams lost in the NFC North this week, but the Lions, I think, had the best showing out of all 4 teams. Mm-hmm. I mean, everyone played better than the Packers, so I guess we can take those moral victories if you believe in those. But I'd say the Lions played the best of the 4. They almost had a great little comeback against San Francisco that was brewing late in the game, but regardless of that, not great.
I don't know what Detroit sports Twitter would have done had both the Tigers and Lions completed those comebacks. And I mean, the Tigers win was exciting enough. And then
it was.
And I'd already written off the Lions game at that point because I had checked in early, and obviously at halftime it was not a pretty score.
Yes.
And so then to discover that they were mounting that comeback and almost did it. A few yards shy of pulling it off in the Jared Goff era. Number 9, I'm sure people are out there saying number 9 would have done it. Matt Stafford would have pulled off that comeback. But he's,
he played for the Rams, and he looked very good last night, by the way. I mean, but then again, the Bears don't have a secondary. So, I mean, I think my old high school football team has only scored 1 touchdown in 3 games this season. That's a true statistic, by the way. I think they could beat the Bears at this point in the game. It's just not good. It's not good.
Let's set it up. Let's set up the match.
Wildcats versus Bears. I mean, where I went to high school, West Chicago. I mean, it's only like maybe an hour and a half drive from the city. If that, I don't even know. It's not worth it either way. It's the most missed event ever in the history of sports. Let's put it that way. You would never need to see it. It was kind of a tale of 2 games there, though, because the Bears went into halftime at least against the Rams, and it was a game. I think it was 13-7 or 14-7 at halftime, and then the wheels completely fell off in the second half. And then more so for the Lions, it looked like it was pretty much a done deal going into halftime, and then they actually came back alive and made it a ball game towards the tail end of the fourth quarter. So hey, good for them. I know it's 17 weeks. I get that, but I just feel like we're kind of on the same page here, although we're not fans of the same team. Like it's almost like we're not so different, you and I. It's kind of like one of those where I just feel like, I don't know about you with the Lions. For me, I'm just seeing the same things with the Bears. Like, yeah, it was awesome seeing Justin Fields get his first touchdown. That was great. See him in for a few plays. David Montgomery, I think, has the makings to potentially be a top 10, if not even top 5 running back in the NFL. That's how good I think he can be if given the right supporting cast around him. But beyond that, it's not looking good right now in Chi-Town. I don't know where you're at with the Lions, but not looking good. I honestly think I had them going 7-10, and that loss last night really put a bad taste in my mouth, thinking because their schedule's hard too. That's another thing for the Bears. I don't know what the Lions' schedule's like, but the Bears have a tough schedule this year. The reason why the Bears snuck into the playoffs last season was because they played like the last 4 weeks. They played like the Jaguars, the Texans, and the Lions. It's like, well, yeah, I hope you can beat them. So that's why they got it. That's the only reason they made it in the playoffs last season was because they played some weak teams towards the tail. That's not
one of the convenient
season.
things of not being a playoff team is you get a weaker schedule. The way the NFL scheduling works, you play the equivalent position in the division around the league, and so that's how one way that your non-division schedule is determined. We'll eventually get to the Tigers here, folks, but I do want to say let's at least go to baseball, and let's talk about a former Tiger, one Max Scherzer, who threw his 3,000th strike of his career, joining that 3,000 club in a game where he nearly went perfect. And it's just to highlight how much I miss watching Max pitch every 5 days. It's always been a thing of beauty. It has continued to get better since he left Detroit. I don't think a reunion with Max Scherzer is in the cards as much as one might want it, but hopefully we get JV back. Somebody posted a picture of like 5 of the Tigers from 2013 and just kind of
and they're all holding the baseball,
remembering that team.
Yeah.
Like, those were the days.
Somehow the Tigers are able to get Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer back. They better be phoning up Rick Porcello and Doug Fister right after him, like, boys, let's do this. Maybe even Anibal Sanchez for all time's sakes. Although when he was with the Tigers, his last stint, it was absolutely putrid. But then he left the Tigers, and he seemed to become once again a pretty solid pitcher. Go figure. That seems to kind of be the MO when players leave the Tigers and they become superstars. Max is awesome. I want an
HBO Hard Knocks style documentary of getting that band back together.
They used to do a show on, I believe it was Showtime, and it was kind of in the same vein as Hard Knocks, and I believe it was called The Pen, and it was all about players in the bullpen. And I want to say they did like a couple seasons, and one of the seasons was like maybe with the Marlins. One of the seasons I think was maybe with the Giants, and it obviously didn't last very long because I'm pretty sure that's pretty much dead and done in the water. And I think it was like honestly 10 years ago because I remember, even if not longer, because I remember one of the big guys on it, I'm pretty sure it was like Brian Wilson, the former Giants closer. So yeah, that was quite a ways ago. Max Scherzer's great, future Hall of Famer. I echo your thoughts. Just every time I watch him pitch, I honestly sometimes forget he was a Tiger. Not that he was unforgettable. I just feels like it was so long ago. This team's been through so much that he hasn't been a part of. So it's just kind of like, man, I miss having a guy like that on the mound. But the hopes is we've got hopefully a Max Scherzer of our own kind of coming down the way here with Casey Mize, Matt Manning, Skubal, Joey Wentz, those guys. So we'll see. Is Max Scherzer a free agent at the end of this season?
I
thought he is. I'm going to look it up.
Yes.
I thought he is. Give me 10 seconds to fill time, and I'm going to look this up.
Yeah, I mean, if he is or if he isn't, I would not be surprised to see the Dodgers lock him up. I don't know that they would have necessarily gone for that trade if he was going to become unavailable in that spot. Although, I mean, it didn't cost them much to get Max in that spot. So maybe that is because he's not going to be available.
He will be a free agent this offseason. That's what I thought. I thought so.
And so, maybe he goes somewhere else. But I also think, with the and I don't really want to talk about this much on the show just because I don't want to give him particular airtime. But with
this is the only reason why I brought it up, because given that, I'm wondering now if the Dodgers do make a play to keep Scherzer around, because I don't want to get into it all in all, because I don't, whatever it is, let that situation get figured out how it does. Minors, I could be wrong on that, but let's just, let's see how that whole thing transpires. But just take him out of the equation. I wonder if LA, even if Trevor Bauer does come back, or if he doesn't, I wonder if LA will try to keep Max around for another, 2 or 3 years, because he seems to be, fitting in pretty well with them. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the Trevor situation unfolds as the compendium of evidence makes me believe that it will unfold, I believe the Dodgers will be finding themselves a legal way out of that contract, and that will free up their Max Scherzer money. And I think that, he almost threw a perfect game. So I don't know why you would get rid of that guy if you're probably not doing your job if you let him walk out of your clubhouse. And
unless they do such a poor job and then he comes back to Detroit, which in that case, keep doing a crappy job, Dodgers organization, because we'll gladly take Max back.
Yeah, I will also say, the only true hesitation there, I would love to have Max back. Don't get me wrong. I don't think I want them to pay Max money to get him back. The money that Max will rightfully deserve in the pay scale. I think Verlander coming off of Tommy John, you're still going to maybe pay a little bit more than you want to, but his stock is certainly significantly lower than Max Scherzer's stock will be coming off of this season. And I would much rather see them spend that money on a Carlos Correa. I was
going to say the potential Max Scherzer money should be going to the shortstop position. No disrespect, Max. You're the man. We love you. Everything you did with the Tigers, but that money needs to be going. Let's just put it bluntly. It needs to be going to a better place. That place is the shortstop position. So that's where the Max money needs to go. He's great, man. We wanted to talk to you real quick about the other no hitter, the Cleveland Indians, third hit for the no hit for the third time this season. You love to see it. I hate Cleveland. So anytime Cleveland can just be in the headlines for all the wrong reasons, I love it. I hate that baseball team. They just annoy me. The fans annoy me. I hate everything about Cleveland. Very apropos that Michigan and Ohio not getting along. It just feeds into the storyline, feeds into the sports rivalry of it all. But Cleveland, you guys suck. You can't hit. You may finish in second place above us, but at least we haven't been three no-hitters against us in one season. We have that going for us. So
one of the reasons we wanted to talk about that, besides hating Cleveland, because I agree with you, the only good thing that comes out of Cleveland is Dan Gilbert and his philanthropy. And
never been to that airport? What a dump.
Yeah, no, terrible. Don't go to Cleveland. There's no reason. Not even to see a Tigers game. Just don't go. Just wait till they come to Detroit.
Drew Carey was actually lying to us, folks. Cleveland does not rock. So, yeah.
They have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because it's that whole concept of you try and pretend you trying to accuse people of being the thing that you aren't, and so they aren't rock, and so they have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But the reason is this particular no hitter against Cleveland was a combined no hitter, which I hate when Major League Baseball reports to me a combined no hitter, as though we should stop. Good job for the pitching staff, I suppose, but that's bad hitting. It's not. That's not a pitcher dominating a team. That's a team having a just really an entire offense having a bad night. Yeah. And so sure, let's notate it, but let's not notate it of good job pitching staff. It's what's happening with the Cleveland Bats is really I
wanted to see how many pitch, but you know what? Here's for what it's worth. And I'm sure you'll be like, it's all or nothing, which I kind of tend to agree with. It was only 2 pitchers that came in.
Yeah.
So it's not like it was 6 or 7. It's not like if the Tigers were to throw a no-hitter right now, it'd be like if the Tigers threw a no-hitter right now with Casey Mize doing 3 innings and Arania doing 2, and then you did 1, 1, 1, 1 the rest of the way, it'd be like, okay, I guess. But
I don't know. So we should probably celebrate Jose Urania throwing 3 no-hit innings.
True. I'll start planning the parade route.
1 no-hitter, really. That's the
So what do you think about this then, as we're kind of just going down these rules we don't really think should count? Because for example, if a pitcher throws a no-hitter in a doubleheader, 7 innings, it does not count. Because I think didn't Mass and Bumgarner have one earlier on in the season, I want to say.
I think that should count.
I'm more inclined to think the opposite.
Because he faced the required number of batters according to the rules.
Yes, But then let me throw another one at you. What if you are a pitcher, you've got a no-hitter going into the 6th inning, and then the game, and you're up big like 12-0, and then the game gets canceled because of rain, and they don't make the game up because the score's already out of reach, and you haven't given up a hit through 6 innings? Is that a no-hitter?
No, because that is an act of God.
So it's God's fault. That's who the pitching staff has to take grievance with, the good Lord. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But with all of these things, right? Like the no-hitter in 7, just notate it.
Mm-hmm.
That he did it over 7.
That's fair.
He faced the requisite number of batters that he was required to face.
I mean,
it's a dumb rule that he only had to go through 7 innings.
Yeah, no, that's definitely valid. But like, I think of it this way too. Like, if we want to get real nitpicky about that, then I hate to throw shade at them because I'm sure everybody does already enough as is. But then why do the Dodgers really get to be called the World Series champion for only playing 60 games? Like, and I understand your reasoning too. Like, they won the required amount of games. Mm-hmm. That was the rule for that season. So by that definition, you'd say, well, that's because that's how that season was set up. But like, it just, I don't know. I have a weird thing in my mind about it. Like, if the Tigers did it, I'd be like, okay, cool. It's not as cool as Spencer Turnbull's no-hitter in Seattle. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, when a pitching staff throws a combined no-hitter, it almost reminds me of like spring training for some reason. Because I feel like every spring training, you get like 1 or 2 combined pitchers throwing a no-hitter, and it's like, oh, okay, well, no one's going to really remember this. I mean, yeah. I guess I don't really. I think for a guy who's very stingy and upset with certain rules in baseball, I guess this is one that's kind of like, I don't really care.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, like, what do I really care? And I would absolutely celebrate the Tigers throwing a combined no-hitter, especially in the Mize Urania 1-1-1 scenario that you laid out. Like, yeah, sure. Yeah, no, we absolutely no-hit the Cleveland Indians.
Yeah, that'd be. Yeah, it's an interesting discussion. I tend to not really care as much. I think almost MLB kind of backs himself into a corner because like there's such a loopholey kind of thing with if it's a combined pitching no-hitter, a combined pitch no-hitter, or if it is that 7-inning no-hitter. It's like they're both just off in their own way. So if you're going to count one, I feel like you got to count all. And if you're not going to count one, I feel like you can't count all. So
because also like this has never happened in the history of Major League Baseball. So this is, a very silly example, but like you think about a guy who's throwing a perfect game and feels his arm pull in the 7th. And so the training staff takes him out.
Yeah.
If a guy comes in and the bullpen finishes the perfect game, are we going to call it a combined perfect game?
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, probably not.
Yeah. I mean, like, you can do it, but we'll all kind of be like, no, I don't like, yeah, you're right. They did do it. But no one's disputing the fact that they threw a combined perfect game no-hitter in the case of the Brewers the other night. But it's just kind of like, it's the same thing with Mad Bum and his no-hitter, whatever he threw earlier on the season for the 7 innings. That's kind of like, I don't know.
You did it. Yeah, I agree. Put it in the record book, but like
no Spencer Turnbull. I'll tell you that much. No Spencer Turnbull. That was awesome. I was partying that night. Alex was sound asleep, and I was partying. So
it's just like. That's the baseball. Oh, wait, no, hang on. One more thing. Did you watch any of the Subway Series this weekend?
I just saw the highlights. I was full disclosure.
Of the near fight.
Yeah, I was in full football mode on Sunday. I watched every game as much as I could. Even for some reason stuck around for that damn Bears game. That's just because I'm just so loyal, I tell you. But no, I understand what you're getting at. The Mets and the Yankees going at it. That was fun. The boys were getting a little scrappy, eh?
Yeah, it was a fun. It was guys have the past couple of weeks have started to talk about games that have a playoff atmosphere, and it's starting to feel truer that there is definitely like some real fight happening. in these teams, especially these teams that are fighting for a wild card spot. The Yankees are, I think, they're probably a full game out of maybe a game and a half at this point because they're in the middle of a skid. I think they just lost to the Twins this afternoon.
So in terms of wild card, right now, in terms of a wild card, we're recording on a pretty much Monday night at this point in time. Toronto and Boston have control of the wild card, and the Yankees are a half game out. Oakland and Seattle only 3 games out. So that's going to be a fun race. And then for the National League, Mets are 3 games out. Dodgers and the Padres have a big Dodgers have a nice lead, and then the Dodgers are going, and then San Diego and Cincinnati are tied record-wise. No, not record-wise, winning percentage-wise. And then St. Louis is a game out, and Phillies are 2.5, Mets are 3. So that's some fun races, definitely. Yeah, as we're getting near the end here.
And as it relates to the Yankees, I, living in New York, obviously have started cheering for the Yankees as my hometown team. But having conversations with other Yankees fans and then talking about the Detroit Tigers, one thing that I appreciate about the Tigers lineup is and this was really on display yesterday's game, the Tigers have a really pretty consistent ability to punch back. It's especially probably more so against good teams, which feels weird, as opposed to if they get down against a team like the Pirates, they just kind of roll over for them.
Yeah, they crumble.
But that is something that I would say, having watched the Yankees a lot, the Yankees don't really have that lineup. If they aren't mashing from go, they have a really hard time getting it going and coming back to it. And if they give it up, they tend to it's over. They don't have that fight to come back. And so that's an encouraging sign to me for this Detroit Tigers team, is that they do seem to have fight in them all the way to the end.
I agree with that. At times this year, I've voiced my displeasures. But one thing I do have to give this team a lot of credit for is they have really at times fought back. Especially at moments when I was like, all right, well, this seems like a typical Tigers game, the way this one's wrapping up. And then, 10 minutes later, like, oh, we got ourselves a game here. So, that was definitely on full display with the Sunday victory over Tampa. What a game for Candelario. Man, what that guy, he's just – we talked about it last week. It was the title of our episode. I don't think the question is longer, is Jeimer Candelario the Tigers' MVP this season? I think it's pretty much definitive at this point. He is the MVP. Again, Robbie's been clutch at times, as has Harold Castro. Akil Baddoo and Eric Haas have been really fun stories. Miggy, especially late, turning it on. Is he actually going to maybe get 3,000 hits this season? It's no longer, I think, out of the be like, that's crazy, that's not happening. I think it's kind of becoming a legit question where it could happen this season.
Friend of the pod, Jeff Daniels, is certainly paying attention.
I saw that. Is Jeff coming on the show next week?
I hope so. He's got to promote To Kill a Mockingbird, right? And this seems like the exact place to do it.
Is he doing that again? To Kill a Mockingbird?
He is. He's coming back into the show. Yeah.
Coming back. All right. Good.
He's coming back for the reopening. I've got tickets October 9th. I will.
Let me know when they open up the Dumb and Dumber musical in New York. Then I'll be there opening night. I
think that's after he does Mockingbird. I think he's going right into that. Yeah, that Excellent. And then he's going to do the Fly Away Home play right after.
Oh, good, terrific, wonderful. So it'll be interesting to see. You get the Tigers a lot of props for what they've done this season and having the fight back. And I will say this, I don't know where I'm not yet changing my tune in regards to how the rest of this month is going to unfold for the Tigers. I think right now they've played 11 games and they're 6-5, or they've played 12 and they're 6-6, but they're hovering right around 500 regardless. But I want to say they're 6-5. I still think they're going to run into some trouble here because the schedule is not really lightening up at all. They get Milwaukee, then they're in Tampa this weekend, then they get Chicago, then they get the Royals and the Twins. And as you just mentioned a little while ago, the Tigers against the AL West and AL East, pretty solid. AL Central, what was it? Was it 15 games under 500? I think
15 games under 500. We spent a good chunk of the middle of this season talking about how the Royals and Twins are not good baseball teams, but as of late, they have been picking up the pace and catching up to the Detroit Tigers. And so the third place finish, the race for third in the American League Central is, it's a bit hotter of a race than I think we wanted it to be a month ago.
Or thought it would be. Yeah. It's I don't know. It's just frustrating that they play well. They play well against the Cincinnati Reds on the road. They play well against the Tampa Bay Rays at home, and then they lose 2 or 3 of the Pirates. Like, it's just that's how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel.
And it's one of those things that I constantly wonder, because those are the things you need to do to win a championship, right? You need to go to Cincinnati and win. You need to play teams like Tampa Bay, and you need to beat them. You need to win those series. That's how you win a World Series, but you also can't win a World Series if you're below 500, if you're 15 games below 500 in your division, because you're never going to get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And so, it's one of those things that how do they fix that? Is that fix a shortstop? Maybe.
Mm-hmm. Get that big name player and kind of push them over the edge. I mean, we've talked about this a lot. We talk about it on our season preview. The 2 that we've done now in our short time doing this show. It's great that they can beat the Rays. It's great that they've played well against the Red Sox and the Yankees and the Blue Jays and the Astros. That's great. That's all fine and dandy, but they can't beat teams like Cleveland. They can't beat mediocre 500 teams like the Angels. So that's why sometimes I'm a bit hesitant to just say, foot on the gas, we are looking good heading into next season, because this is something we have consistently seen from this team over the years, and it's still happening in this season. And maybe this is the final kind of bit of growing pains that we're going to have with the Tigers. They're playing better. They're playing better against first place teams, more talented teams and rosters, but then they struggle with kind of those middle of the road teams. I don't get that. That doesn't make any sense on paper. It doesn't make any sense when you say it out loud. But maybe that's just kind of where they're at right now. But yeah, I still stand by it. I don't see how this team can even think about competing for a World Series when they have difficulty playing the Minnesota Twins. Like, that just, to me, it's just like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Unless you're playing incredibly well against the White Sox, the Cleveland Indians, the Kansas City Royals, and then every other team that comes here, on the road or at home. But I don't know. But again, to take this in a positive direction, they played well against Tampa Bay. So, I mean, you got to give them their props. I'll be curious to see how they do at Tampa this week. It's a 4-game series, I believe. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, because the Brewers are pretty hot right now as well. Also a great baseball team.
Great.
So
they are a great team.
A rough 6 games coming up, because you have to think that the Rays are going to adjust. They'll say, well, we don't want that to happen again, as they dive into this. And so, I mean, we'll see. It's one of those situations that, we talked about this last week, that I just want to see this team continue to play well. And if playing well means that this week they lose 7-5 6 different times to teams that are just better baseball teams than them, then I'm okay with that. Obviously don't want them to go 0-6. Going 0-6 feels terrible, but if it's a 7-5 loss, consistently where they're in it, and these guys are just better baseball teams, that feels different than if they go and they're losing 7-0, 10-1, some of these abysmal stretches of offense that we have seen this team produce, where if we're here talking and they've scored 3 runs in 6 games at this time next week, that's where the problem is.
The issue the Tigers are going to run into, because you got to give the offense credit, they definitely kind of hit that lull there in the beginning of the month, end of August into month of September. They've definitely kind of snapped out of that as of late, which is great to see, because we knew this offense had the capability to be, fairly consistent. They are no San Francisco or New York or Boston or Tampa, whatever. But they've been solid for what they are. What the issue the Tigers are going to face is 3 out of their 5 pitchers are now all on limited innings. So those are now 3 bullpen days. Willie Peralta really isn't known for going super deep into games. Neither is Tyler Alexander. Matthew Boyd is pretty much done for this season, and we should get to that in a second. I have a horrible feeling our guy Matthew Boyd is staring down the barrel of some Tommy John surgery coming his way. So that's where the Tigers are going to run into issues this last kind of couple weeks of the season is pitching. And, you know, it's a consequence of the circumstance that they're currently in with limiting the innings of Mize, Manning, and Skubal. Again, we said it on last week's show. We both agree that that is the right move. We think that's smart, preserving those young arms as, you know, we look towards next season and many, many seasons to come. But, you know, one of the cons of doing so is that these next couple of weeks might be at times, you know, a little bit brutal. Just kind of have to see how it goes. It's just tough. It's a tough schedule. You get Milwaukee, Tampa, and then Chicago. And then I think we go either Minnesota, Kansas City, or Kansas City, Minnesota, and then we finish in Chicago. And that's all she wrote. So, you know, I think they've got 6 games this week. It'd be great to see them just kind of, I guess, stick on this 3-3 trajectory. You know, maybe take a game against Milwaukee, and then hopefully try to get two a split a series in Tampa Bay, and just see how it goes. I'm tempering expectations these last 2 weeks of the season. But hey, on a positive note, we have 3 players on this team who have hit 20 home runs or more, that being Robbie Grossman, Eric Haas, and Jonathan Scope. So that's pretty awesome. We haven't had that since, I think, 2017. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's you know, all those great rays of light that we see that, like, okay, great. Yeah, these guys are where they are hitting. They're doing these things. But yeah, you're right. I mean, pitching is going to be the problem at the end. And one thing I do say that is good about AJ Hinch and his coaching staff is that they this year are unbothered by the, you know, win-loss situation, in that they aren't going to risk the young arms for next year,
right,
to get through games this year. They're just like, he's just not going to do it. Yeah. And that's good. It's going to suck for us as fans, but hey, the Lions are back. So, oh wait.
Hey, the Bears are back. Oh no.
When does the NBA tip off and we can all watch the Pistons again?
I'll just watch The Last Dance on Netflix and I'll be happy. That's good enough for me. I will not be watching Space Jam 2. I watched that back in July.
We don't talk about Michael Jordan terrible. On this show.
Oh, this isn't a Michael podcast?
This is an anti-Michael Jordan podcast.
But is it a Michael Keaton podcast? Because if so, then let's get into that.
Pro Michael Keaton, anti
Best Michael Keaton movie that you can think of on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Birdman. Or Spider-Man Homecoming. Or Jack Frost.
Ooh, I've seen that
Beetlejuice guy. I'm not a big Beetlejuice guy.
Oh yeah, he is in Beetlejuice. It's been a long time.
Or Mr. Mom.
Beetlejuice.
Mr. Mom, he's pretty good.
Oh well, hang on, Mr. Mom. That's classic. I think that won 12 Academy Awards, right?
That's classic. Oh, I mean, I guess you were forgetting the what was it? Tim Burton's Batman. He was Batman.
As a Batman fan, I try and forget Tim Burton's Batman.
Oh, that's interesting. A lot of people like that. Anyways, carrying on.
As we're getting a little loopy here, so let's talk about some of those injuries that you alluded to. Matthew Boyd probably done for the year. Obviously, Spencer is heading for Tommy John surgery, and unfortunately, Jake Rogers also has had Tommy John surgery. He's had the surgery.
Yeah, I think Spence and Jake have had their surgery, and now it's the long road to recovery. And
so, you have the suspicion that Matthew is headed that way as well. Care to elaborate?
Yeah, I mean, it's just his elbow, and he didn't look particularly great coming back in those 2 or 3 starts he had from the IL. He had been out since June. I don't know, and I've been reading some Tigers Twitter comments and a blog here or there, and just like kind of people starting to look more and more kind of like at Tigers strength and conditioning coaches being like, what's going on here? Like, yeah, injuries are a part of the game. No one is physically being like, this Tigers trainer is the reason why we're not going to see Spencer Trimble probably until 2023. Nobody's saying that. I think where people are a little bit kind of like, what's happening here is the time at which they're getting these surgeries done. So, for example, I mean, obviously, we all want to be proactive and get these guys back. But you have to imagine at a certain point in time, I mean, again, I have no medical degree. I'm an absolute buffoon when it comes to this stuff, but just kind of from someone who's a ding-dong trying to think out loud. Like at a certain point in time, like if you're watching a guy like Jake Rogers and progress, and he had been saying that he was still feeling discomfort and some pain, like at what point in time you'd be like, well, we all know what the kind of kryptonite is in Major League Baseball when it comes to throwing. It's Tommy John. Why do we not just get that looked at right away? Like, why do we not just eliminate the biggest cause for concern right away? That way, if it isn't it, awesome. You can kind of take a deep breath and be like, well, at least it isn't this. And if it is that, be like, well, this sucks, but let's nip it in the bud now rather than wait 4 to 6 weeks, and we can try to get that road to recovery started a little bit sooner. And I think that's why some Tigers Twitter and myself are a little bit like, what's happening here? Why are we waiting to diagnose that someone needs Tommy John surgery 2 months after that they've been on the IL, having these issues health-wise? So I guess that's kind of where some people are like, this isn't making any sense. Someone needs to answer to this, and I kind of agree.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it's one of those that I feel like this is my fallback answer. I trust AJ Hinch, and the reason I say that is that we are, he's turning around a very large ship that was very much headed in the wrong direction for the past few years. And no ill will to Gardy. He got dealt a terrible hand. And was not given tools to turn the boat around. He was just put on it and said, go that way, and just kind of keep it afloat. He wasn't
even given a wheel to steer the boat.
No, he was just on there. He, had a rope that he could throw and kind of try and pull the boat in a different direction if he wanted to. And so I would hope that one of the next steps that AJ Hinch and his team will take is to look at the strength and conditioning team and start now that the big issues seem to be getting solved. How do we now start to fix some of these other issues that are continuing to plague the organization, and how do we become an organization like the Cardinals, like we talk about all the time, where we the perennial contenders, although less so this year, but still even now that Cardinals team is not that Cardinals team probably could have and should have been more competitive on paper than they seem to be on the field. But, how do we become that, and how do we fix plug all these leaks?
The one thing I think you have to give a little credit for, it's kind of a pro and a con. For what it's worth, the Tigers' core group of hitters, and I would include those being Eric Haas, Miguel Cabrera, Jamer, Scope, Robbie, and did I say Akil Baddoo? Those are kind of like the 6 guys, I think. I know Akil Baddoo had that nasty collision with Derek Hill. That's just sometimes the nature of the game. Miggy was on the IL earlier in the year. I know Haas just came off, a couple weeks ago. Knock on wood, they haven't had a ton of injuries on offense that I'm like, oh boy, how are we going to replace Jamer Candelario now for the rest of the year? Like, Scope has remained pretty much healthy for the most part, as has Candelario, as has Robbie Grossman, and those 3 guys in particular pretty much play every day. So kudos to them for staying healthy, the training that they're putting on, into the work, in the off season, and getting them prepped to be ready to go for 162 when the regular season rolls around. But then the con of this all is this is now an issue, because if Matthew Boyd does go down the direction of Tommy John, you've now lost 2 pieces that you thought would be a part of the rotation for next year. And you've got Mize, you've got Manning, you've got Skubal, but, I don't really think Willie Peralta is long-term. I don't think Tyler Alexander is like a guy you're looking for the rotation down the road, maybe, because I think he's pitched okay with the time he's been given. The status of a guy like a Joey Wentz, who has no big league experience. Faedo is coming back from, is it Tommy John as well?
Yeah,
so it's like,
it is, yeah.
It's just, now not only is there a big demand to get a shortstop this offseason, now you're going to have to go out and get some pitching. Everyone was kind of like, oh, it'd be so much fun to get a guy like Justin Verlander to come back to Detroit. And now with these injuries, it's kind of like, No, it's not
Mm-hmm.
so more of a want. It's now a need. We're
Yeah.
going to need someone to come in and help us out.
Yeah, and I don't know necessarily who that is necessarily, but it does certainly. If there wasn't already plenty of motivation to get Justin Verlander signed on the dotted line to make his return to Detroit, there's much more fire there now. And then I don't know that you need. We don't necessarily need a Max Scherzer to come into that spot. That'd be great, but we do need you need a solid starter. It can't be some of these reclamation projects that
innings eaters.
Yeah, Jose, like it's got to be a solid starter. It's not necessarily your one or two guy out of somebody's rotation, but somebody that is a very solid third guy in the
someone
rotation.
threw out. I thought someone wrote an article on it. Maybe it was Motor City Bengals. Maybe it was Castellani with Barstool. I don't remember. Maybe it wasn't any of them. But Robbie Ray from the Blue Jays coming back to the Tigers, like he would be a really solid fit. And one thing too, the Verlander reunion sounds awesome on paper, and I would actually love to see it. We all would, because we love JV and what he did for this organization. But let's not bury the lead with him either. He himself is coming off Tommy John surgery, so who knows what Justin Verlander we would even potentially get. I mean, I have faith that him coming back would be pretty good. I don't know if he'll be the Justin Verlander he was prior to getting Tommy John, but I think he would still come back in a capacity where it's like, this guy is still an asset to have on your team, even if he isn't, 2012 Justin Verlander.
Yeah, we're probably not seeing him going into the ninth and just still dialing it up to 99. Probably not going to see him do that again in a Tigers uniform, but maybe.
So who knows? But it's just something interesting to think of. But this is now an issue. This is an issue that's going to need to be figured out. And again, it's been Matthew Boyd was scratched from the start on Friday or Saturday, I believe, and. I understand you want to get you want to get second opinion, things like that. But at a point in time too, it just feels like when they keep waiting and dragging things out. He hasn't been healthy pretty much since June. He came back and he mustered his way through a couple of starts. He wasn't very good. It's just kind of like, what do we do? And now also, this is not only a question of Matthew Boyd and his health, but also like just his future as a Detroit Tiger. Like, is the window and is the door starting to finally close on Matthew Boyd's career as a Tiger? I mean, I've read and kind of heard some people being like, yeah, it makes sense. And I don't want it to be, but who knows? Baseball is a cruel sport, and it takes no prisoners, even if they're really, really nice people like Matthew Boyd.
Yeah, I mean, that's also an excellent point, is that how much more time do you want and money do you want to commit to a guy like Matthew Boyd, who has had great flashes and a couple of excellent seasons, but plagued by a
lot of bad seasons, a lot of really bad seasons.
Injury prone.
The way he pitched this beginning of the season, those 7 or 8 starts, however many it was before he went down, was phenomenal. That was the best we'd ever seen him pitch. And that's kind of what Matthew Boyd does. Again, we will never knock the guy's character of who he is off the field, because he's a model human being, and I think we all should aspire to be in some way, shape, or form. But on the field, it's like Matthew Boyd, he gives you those 7 or 8 starts, like, finally, this is the guy we've wanted. And then you get the Matthew Boyd who gives up a homer in every other pitch, walks guys, and gives you like a 4-11 year with an ERA close to 6, and you're like, oh boy. Okay,
yeah, and if you're gonna commit to if you got 2 starters that are having Tommy John surgery, and I got to commit to one of them long term, am I going to pick the one who is plagued by the home run ball, or the one who threw the 8th no-hitter in organization history?
Yeah, that's fair, and they're both great. But I think I kind of tend to agree with you on that one. I'm probably more in the Spence camp at this point. I just feel like his ceiling is higher than Matthew Boyd's at this point, if we're trying to think big picture down the road. So we'll see. Yeah.
And we will be here to talk about it when it happens, whatever it may be. So folks, stay tuned to join us over on social media at Mish_Trumbull. Luke, as I say every week, Luke during games, always entertaining.
I mean, I was pretty good this week, I think. I don't think I was too aggressive. I mean, been busy with work. It was the start to football season. I was a little bit frustrated. Was it on Friday night I don't remember. Oh, Friday night I was mad because the home plate umpire missed a clear ball. And I the more that I've watched some, I've probably watched close to, I'd say 90% of every Tigers game this year. And we need robo umps. It's time. It's time. These gentlemen cannot be trusted anymore. I'm sorry. And some of these calls are momentum killers, and it makes a difference whether it's one strike in the count or two, or if that runner gets on base via the walk or is walking back because it's strikeout when it was clearly ball four. That goes without saying. So robo umps now, please. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of whatever on robo umps, just kind of generically. But when they're able to show me on the TV broadcast immediately after the pitch whether it was a ball or a strike and how it went through the zone, it's time, because there's no point in you showing me how badly the ump blew the call when clearly we have the technology for the technology to just make the call. And obviously, we still need a home plate umpire because we still got to have somebody that's going to, call
plays at the plate.
Call plays at the plate. But balls and strikes, probably we don't need. Or I don't think it's a reviewable call right now, but make it reviewable. Yeah.
I mean, I think I agree with you there. Each team gets a ball or strike challenge a game, a pitch challenge, if you want to call it. I think that's fair.
Because I think that because if you give them one or two, they're not going to use it every time they're up at the plate, which means umps are still free to miss many balls and strikes.
Yeah.
But the ones that are momentum killers in either
that's
direction, that's the time
problem
to do it, and that review would go so quick because the computer would just be like, yeah, that was a strike.
You missed that one. That one, Bob.
You really blew that
brought
one,
it up. Yeah. You brought it up real quick, and I would like to finish on it. I have one grievance that I would like to air on this show.
Oh, yes. It is the Festivus episode of the show.
Yes.
We are the airing of grievances.
Yes. Thank you. And it is aimed squarely at Bally Sports, Florida. They have some explaining to do. Did you see my tweet that these idiots do down here? What idiots? I've never seen this anywhere ever before. Any sport. Doesn't matter if it's baseball, football, women's lacrosse. I have never seen any sport ever do this, any network do this. So to fill all of those in who may be confused as to what I'm talking about, I live in Florida. So this past weekend series with the Rays at Detroit was blacked out on the MLB app. So I had to watch the game on Bally Sports, Florida. The network does the most insanely idiotic thing I've ever seen, where they will go to commercial in the middle of an at-bat for 2 or 3 commercials and then immediately go back. And there's no interlude from the announcers being like, hey, we're going to go to commercial. We'll be right back. It just cuts on its own, and then it comes back. It happened throughout the entire game this past series, the games this past series. It wasn't just in the high-pressure moments late in the game, but you can imagine how annoying it is when it's bottom of the 9th, winning run on third, 2 outs, Jonathan Schoop steps up to the plate, and you go to commercial. And by the time they came back to commercial, they just kept it going because then they were in the top of the 10th because Schoop got out. So I didn't even get to see what happened. I don't know who's making this call. If someone can explain this to me, maybe I'm just missing something and it's clear as day. Maybe is it like the area I'm in where this is a thing where it only happens in my county? I don't know, but someone needs to give me an explanation because that was a bunch of crap. And I was not happy. Not to be a complainer, but come on. That is ridiculous. Commercial breaks mid at bat. That's inexcusable. Someone needs to explain this to me.
Just for clarity, this was on broadcast television.
Yes.
So anybody who was like, oh, clearly, Luke, you were experiencing an app glitch. No, this was broadcast television. There's no way it could have been an app glitch because I was blacked out from watching the Rays game because it was Rays Tigers. So I get Marlins games and Rays games are blacked out down here on the MLB app. So there's no way it could have been an app glitch. And that is because I watch soccer on television. I watch NASCAR occasionally. Those things don't stop. They do go to commercial in a traditional sense in a NASCAR race during a caution.
Yes,
but
when
they
appropriate.
do. They have a thing called Fox Side by Side for Fox NASCAR broadcasts where they keep the race up. They're not talking. The audio is the commercial, but the game is still there.
Exactly.
And that's people driving in a circle. That's not people.
There was none of that. There was no split screen cut to commercial, let the game go on while the game is muted, but the audio to the commercial is playing. It was literally as if you and I were talking right now, and admit it just cut off, and it goes to something else. It was essentially the Sopranos ending. That's what happened. I was watching it. I was excited. I wanted to know if Tony Soprano was going to get whacked. I wanted to know if Meadow Soprano was going to figure out how to parallel park. And before I know it, Journey comes on. Don't Stop Believing. He looks up. They are eating onion rings. And that's that.
That's
to the credits. And if I just spoiled the Sopranos ending for you, I apologize. But it ended, I think, in 2007. So
no need to apologize. It's
very excited for
it's been 14 years.
Very excited for the new movie, by the way. I'm very excited for that, but that's another podcast. But yeah, so if someone could explain that to me in particular, and I know I may have been a bit aggressive in my tweet, but I think it's a valid question. Mm-hmm. Why is a broadcast network cutting out in the midst of a game, and not only in the midst of the game, in one of the most intense moments of the game, to go to a commercial and have zero explanation for it? I think Bally Sports needs to get their act together a little bit.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yep. I don't know. Never experienced that before with any other sport. I watch golf sometimes, never that. Soccer, I'm with you every now and then. I'll watch some soccer, basketball, football, hockey, just boxing. You know, those boxing matches that happen on ESPN2 at 11 o'clock on a Friday night. Never seen it with that before. Nothing.
LeBron James drives the lane. It's up.
Yep.
We want to see you in a Kia.
Yep, pretty much. So, anywho, that's it. That's all I got. I'll be curious to see if it happens again this week.
I would say, hopefully this coming weekend they've sorted it out. Because
this weekend
right
they're
back there, Bally Sports, Florida.
We'll
all
see.
Right, Luke. Have a good week.
You too, man. Go Tigers.